Before we move on to the exercise, we want to demonstrate one more example of implementing arrays. The last example was very simple. We just created an array of button numbers to control our DVD player. Let's take it a step further now. Before we dive in, I want to be crystal clear about the purpose of this tutorial. The code we are about to demonstrate will not function. We're not going to build new touch panel pages or create any events to make this work. The primary purpose of this tutorial is to demonstrate how to properly create and initialize an array. With that said, let's begin. We're currently controlling the Lexicon DVD player using a module. In the last tutorial, we added a simple button array and the getLast function to send a command to the virtual device, thus controlling the Lexicon DVD. But what if we didn't have a module? What if we needed to send the raw strings directly to the Lexicon? Well, we could send these strings directly in the button event, but there's an easier way. We can create an array of the strings that we need, and then in the button event, simply reference the index of that array to send the appropriate string. First, we need to create the array. It'll be a volatile character array, and I'll name it slexicon_commands. Because we're going to be storing more than one single byte of data for each index in the array, we need to create a two-dimension array. Why, you ask? Well, we're storing a list of commands, and each command is multiple bytes of data. For this example, we're going to store the power on and off commands, as well as the commands for play, stop, and pause. I'll show you the commands in just a minute, but if you'd like to look them up for yourself, feel free to open the Lexicon RS-232 protocol document that's included in the resource folder for this course. So, the first dimension in the array has to deal with the number of commands we're going to have in the array. In this case, 5. So, I'll put a 5 inside the square brackets. Next, we create a second dimension with another set of square brackets. Inside here, we'll put the length of the commands. As I already mentioned, the commands we wish to load in this array are power on and off, play, stop, and pause. The commands themselves are a mix of ASCII and hex characters. The power off command uses an @ symbol as a start character, followed by the command which is PWR:1, and finally, they require a hex 0D as an end character. The other commands follow the same format, except the command itself is different. The power on command is PWR:2. The play command is PLY:0. The stop command is STP:0. And finally, the pause command is PPS:0. Remember, in netlinks, a hexadecimal value is represented by the $sign. So all of these commands are the same length. How many bytes did you count? If you said 7, you're correct. Therefore, let's put a 7 inside the last dimension. Now, here comes the tricky part. Because these commands are a mixed bag of ASCII characters and hex characters, you cannot initialize this array here in the define variable section. If we just had ASCII characters, no problem. It would look like this. The array is defined and initialized all right here in define variable. But these commands need a hex 0D at the end of the string to represent the carriage return. So, we simply put a semicolon at the end of the variable definition, and we're done here. Where do you think we need to go to load these commands into the array, otherwise known as initializing? Well, we want it to happen right away, as soon as the code is loaded. Therefore, we'll go down to the define start section. In the next lesson, we'll talk more about the define start section, but for now, we're going to initialize our array. Begin by just typing the name of the array we want to initialize. In this case, it's slexicon commands. Next, Which index in the array are we initializing? Remember that even though this is a two-dimensional array, we only need to reference the first dimension, i.e. the row number, since one row is equivalent to one command. Open a set of square brackets, and we're going to do the power off command first. Therefore, put a 1 in here. Next, we use the gets operator and type in the command. We start by putting the entire command inside double quotes. Then, anytime we have ASCII characters, they are in single quotes. So, open a set of single quotes and type in @PWR:1. We then separate the ASCII from the hex using a comma, and finally, type in the hex 0D. Add the other 4 commands and make sure you change the index of the array for each one of the commands. S lexicon commands sub 2 gets power on command. S lexicon commands sub 3 gets play command. S lexicon commands sub 4 gets stop command. S lexicon sub 5 gets pause command. Our array is now fully initialized and ready to go. In a later lesson, you'll learn how to send strings to devices. But now you know how to initialize hex values in arrays. Compile your code and make sure you have no errors and no warnings.